Hello everyone, this is Korosh Erfani and today is Thursday, March 12, 2026. We are reporting the 13th day of the war of Israel and the United States on Iran, and we are trying to see what would be the different scenarios for the coming days and weeks. We have already passed the record of the previous war, the war of 12 days of June 2025. Now we are in the 13th day, which means that tomorrow we will be at the end of the second week of this war. And from the moment we have the possibility for having 2 weeks without any sign of de-escalation, but on the contrary, having a lot of signs of escalation, we can believe that the war is going to escalate, and we are going to have a long or at least mid-term war, if it's not a long-term war. Several things happened in the last 24 hours that could be very interesting to understand that there is a huge potential in this war in order to keep going. First of all, a few hours ago, we got breaking news according to which Iran fired ballistic missiles to the NATO's bases in the Incirlik air base in Turkey. Right? In these bases, apparently, the United States has some 50 nuclear bombs. There are 50 nuclear warheads that are stored there, and if this news is true, because we are still looking for the confirmation by the different credible sources, but it's a matter of having the explosion over there, in that area. And of course, this means two things. First, Iran is, going for US and its bases in the region. On the other hand, also, the Turkey will be somehow involved. The Turkey tried during this war, during these two first week, to keep itself aside somehow, to not to be directly involved, but it looks like that it's impossible. And all the countries, without any exception, in the region will be somehow directly involved in this war. It's a matter of time for the Pakistan, for Afghanistan, for Turkey, for the Central Asia country. I am pretty sure that those countries also have to be involved in a way or another. It's a matter of time, and I am going to explain why it's a necessity for all these countries to come into this war. So another thing that we saw is the United States losing KC-135 starter tanker, which has crashed completely in the western country, in the western Iraq. And it looks like that these are the Iraqi forces, which means that now the firepower of the Iraqi forces is such that they can effectively put at risk the US bases and the US aircrafts, and the photos are showing that this stratotanker had been damaged in the Ben Gurion airport. So in another development that we have had a few hours ago, Hezbollah targeted a part of the northern Israel, and it's a matter of at least between 50 to 65 people injured. So it means Israel is not able really to defend against Hezbollah that was supposed to, completely wiped out. We can see that it's not the case, and it's operating and is getting a lot of casualties in northern Israel. So all of these are telling us that this is a war that could be seen differently, because usually when it's a matter of war, we have a memory about this, right? And this memory consists in two sides that are fighting with each other with a sort of balance of power. Because if there is not really at all a balance, maybe it couldn't have been even a war, right? Or it shouldn't have been a war, because one part can crush the other part immediately, and there won't be anything that could last in the time called war or military conflict or such a thing. But here, even though we are using the term war, we are in a specific form or a specific type of war, okay? Where in the one side you have two greatest armies that you can imagine from a point of view of logistic, weaponries, technology, hardware, software, anything, and support also, and resources. American army as the most powerful army, at least theoretically, right? Or the most spending army, $1 trillion budget, if you can imagine that. And on the other hand, the fifth army of the world, again theoretically, and the first army of the region in the Middle East. So both of them combined come to wage a war against, let's say, average, really in the middle of the ranking among the world's armies, right? The Iranian army, the Iranian military force. But the issue is that now we have something extremely odd and unprecedented, because I saw someone formulated it this very interestingly. Let me read it for you. It could be really good. He said Iran has single-handedly compressed a decade of American imperial decline into a single week. It's interesting, right? A decade shrunk, compressed into just a single week. The world now has empirical evidence that American military omnipotence is a narrative rather than a reality, right? Because as I told you, the United States has been always presented as owning the first army in the world because of the number of aircraft carrier, navy, soldiers, and anything, right? And essentially, I think because of the budget compared to the biggest army, the most populated army, for example, the Chinese army, Russian, or others, the Americans are spending something like 2, 3, 4 times more than those countries, right? It's something like equivalent of 35 countries together spending for their defense budget just for one country. All right. So we have had this image so far. We thought that they are so powerful that they are able to go anywhere and crush, completely, destroy completely anything they want. And it was the case. It was the case to some extent, but only up to a point. We cannot exaggerate about that, because when you see how the things went on in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and elsewhere, we started to have really doubt about this claim of being the first army in the world. But don't forget that One of the source of deception is effectively self exaggerating or self-deception, we can say, exaggerating about its own forces and taking up the challenges that you cannot really meet the goals, right? So that's why here we have the case of the United States under Trump with a narrative that was totally inflated, right? Saying all the time that we have the best army in the world, we have the most powerful army in the world, nobody can face us, there is no such a thing in the world, they are far from us. So when you repeat that, this nonsense, right? When you repeat them, you end up by believing them, right? And once you believe in the fact that you are the omnipotent and nobody can challenge you, of course you can launch yourself, into such misadventure, we can say, right? And once you are there, you realize that no, nothing, but absolutely nothing is going in the sense that you want. As you can see here, one example from Financial Times talking about United States has burned through years of munitions since the start of Iran war. We are talking about just less than 2 weeks war, and the United States is showing the sign of lacking, missing munitions, for the most important part of the war, which is the destruction on the one hand, and the defense of itself, its bases and its allies, and essentially its master Israel on the other hand. So which means that you are taken, you are trapped into your own rhetoric, right? An empty rhetoric according to which you are the best, you are the most powerful, you are the richest, you are the most provided, you are the strongest from a logistic point of view, and you can do whatever you want. Therefore, right? So it's not the case. It's not absolutely the case. So now we have a very interesting frame for our discussion. Imagine that two countries, very powerful, militarily speaking, come to a war with a country that is supposed to stand up for a few hours or at most a few days. This is what the Americans and Israelis were thinking, right? That's why they went for Iran. They tried to get to all their objectives during the first or maybe the second day. But now we are in the 13th day, and nothing is going well for the Americans and the Israelis. Why? Let's first see if they could get really to their objectives, if they could meet, their objectives or not. Because everything is showing that no, they have fallen short of, these goals and objectives. First, they thought that they can make a regime change in Iran. There was not regime change in Iran. The people, the Iranian people are not eager to change the regime in these conditions. That's why all the calls for coming to the streets, uprising, doing something, have no echo in Iran by the Iranian people. Everybody was waiting for the Iranians flee completely their country. As I told you, there is no such a sign, the sign of such a thing, and now we have more and more Iranians from outside wanting to, enter their country. So it's totally inverse of what they wanted, as opposed to what they have, organized, in total contrast to what Israel and United States wanted. We don't see anything, any sign that the Iranian nation right now wants to change regime or something like that. Even though the Iranian regime is not popular, we can say, but now their country is in such a situation that the Iranian nation cannot really risk any political game or political Israeli plot, for example, so that their country get disintegrated. Because this is what Israeli wanted. The Israelis didn't really want any regime change. They wanted any regime in Iran. Their objective was to completely dismantle any possibility for having an institutional structure of power in Iran. That's why in the first day, in the first hours, they tried to eradicate completely, do away with the leadership and all the people around in order to create a kind of vacuum, right? And through this vacuum, they wanted to explore all the chances to put the Iranians to fight with each other and create a chaos, and through this chaos sending their mercenaries, Kurds or others into Iran, create a civil war and disintegrate Iran. That was the plan. That was the initial plan of Israel. But we see that we are far, far from such a thing. Even though they are still, like Netanyahu, even today, was speaking about in a few days the Iranian people have to come to streets and get their destiny in their hands. Nobody cares. It's really just the blah blah that no one wants to hear about that. So there was no protesters, no uprising, no regime change, no whatever that they had planned to disintegrate Iran. On the other hand, we can see that they didn't think really that it would be possible for Iran, either logistically, militarily, or even economically beneficial, to shut down completely the Strait of Hormuz. Right? They thought that Iranians are talking about that. Iranians are threatening about this, but beyond the threats, there won't be any action that can really close the Strait of Hormuz. And we saw that this calculation also was completely wrong. Iranians shut down completely the Strait of Hormuz, and it's still closed, and there is no perspective, but no perspective at all when, how, where it would be possible to find a solution for opening this strategic Strait of Hormuz. The United States doesn't have any clue about how to do so, because they wanted to push the tankers and the cargoes to pass over there. They didn't want. They promised to escort that, but the Iranians, let me show you something that's very interesting, which is the number of the vessels that had been destroyed and hit so far in the Strait of Hormuz, right? So it's a matter of tankers, container ship, and bulk carriers. So 16 vessels had been hit so far, and we can see that this strait, which is necessary for at least 20% of the world's oil, now is completely closed, and the Americans and the Israelis cannot do anything about that. So which means that we are going to have disastrous, catastrophic consequences for this closure, because today, after having been a little under impact of the promises, the narratives, and so on and so on, with these operations of Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, sinking at least 3 tankers over there. Now the market is really afraid and is completely scared, and the price of the oil barrel is above $100. And on the other hand, we saw what happened to the global markets. I am going to talk about the global markets in a few minutes, but just keep in your mind that the Strait of Hormuz as the most strategic element of the configuration, geopolitical configuration of the region right now, is totally, utterly, and fully in the control of the Iranian forces. Even though the Americans are talking about that the Iranians are done, the Navy is done, everything has been destroyed, but we see that is just a nonsensical claim, untrue claim, and the Iranians are fully powerful and able to keep this Strait of Hormuz closed. Other thing is that Israel is getting hit in a, let's say, more violent way day after day, because Iran announced that from 2 days ago it's going just to use the very powerful another generation of the missiles that are more powerful and can damage much more, and we can see that is the case. Imagine that if there was not really the military censorship of Israeli government, now we could have had a very clear idea about some parts of Tel Aviv and other cities like Haifa turned into the Gaza in kind, right? Similar to Gaza. This is what the Iranians are doing to Israel, to some parts of Israel. And can you imagine that this is not really the maximum of power, of the firepower of Iranian, which means that they have still other kinds of missiles that they can use over Israel and can cause much more damages and casualties. For example, if they use the hypersonic missiles, they are not using that yet, which means that in a very obvious incremental way, we can see the Iranians are able to keep the promise, because they promised that we will intensify, step by step, gradually, right? Based on what the enemy is doing. So the last one, for example, was the case of the threat of Trump, according to which the United States can bring Iran into the dark for just in 48 hours, in 2 days. In 2 days, Iran can completely lose any electricity power, and go into in dark, right? So can you imagine that the Iranians said that we don't need any that time. We can do it for the whole region, right? Just into in 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, we can hit all the power installation, power facilities, power generating facilities of the whole region, which means United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and so on. So 50 million people will be in dark after, let's say, 1 hour, right? Through that, there won't be any power or energy for all the American bases that remain in the region. There would be a real catastrophe for the economy, essentially because the people won't have even the tap water, because for having the drinking water in those countries, they are using the desalination facilities, and they need electricity, they need power. And imagine that in Saudi Arabia it's a matter of between 40 to 60%. For the United Arab Emirates, this is for 70%. For Qatar is 100%. For the Emirates is between 70 to 90%. For Qatar is 100%. 50 million people, let's say, I don't know, 30, 40 million of them won't have any water to drink if Iran wants really to impose that hell, over there. So, as soon as the United States or Israel starts to bomb the national grid of Iran, Iran is able to, fire back and by this plan and bring the whole region, the whole Arab countries of the Persian Gulf, of the southern Persian Gulf, into dark. This is how the things are. So we can see that in this war that was supposed to provide a protection for these Arab countries we are talking about, right? Because they are the protectorates of the United States, right? They paid billions and billions of dollars to the Americans. They gave land, power, and anything else, money, just to have this protection. And now, by seeing that the Americans are not able even to protect themselves, and all their bases are even destroyed or damaged or abandoned, and through the flee of the Americans from these bases, going to the hotels, in order just to hide themselves. Now the Arab countries are realizing that it was a completely absurd idea to pay, let's say, more than $1 trillion during 50 years to the Americans in order to have a protection that doesn't exist, a protection that the Americans cannot provide to themselves, right? And from that reality, now we have the more and more news regarding the Asian countries like the South Korea, like Japan, and other countries that wanted to have this protection. That it's a completely delusional to think about having a protection by the Americans that are not able to defend themselves. So, which means a huge blow to the credibility of the United States as a superpower or a serious partner for the national defense of all these countries in the region. We are talking about the Persian Gulf and also in the South Asia. Now, what's happening really? I am enumerating all the negative aspects that are showing that the war didn't go at all in the direction wanted, desired, pre-planned by Israelis and Americans. Look at the situation in the in the Persian Gulf area, the situation of Qatar, Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. They are dying. Literally, they are dying because they cannot make money. Can you imagine these countries without production of oil production, oil exports, and not having any activity of tourism, of airlines? So they are dying. They are drying, we can say, right? And they don't have any leverage. Nothing that can impact the consequences of this war or the course of this war. They don't have any weight economically and politically, militarily. They are just kind of victims, or I don't know what word we can use to describe them, but they are completely aside in this war between Israel and the United States on the one side and Iran and its proxies on the others. They cannot do anything. And we should know that there is a possibility for the future of this country that could be extremely chaotic. Why? Because the people over there cannot really support the incompetent regimes that they have, and cannot bear with the lack of power, water, money, business, security, nothing. So we should wait for, we can already have this idea, a prospect of chaos, a complete chaos for the future of this country in the region. Also, we see that there is a chain of events. You remember several times I said in the previous videos that it's a matter of a regional war capable of becoming global war. And we have the signs. Right now we have the signs that's already potentially and indirectly a global war. For example, when you see that the government of India is trying to contact the Iranian government, talking with the Iranian president in order to push them toward the acceptance of kind of ceasefire or peace or something, it means that India is affected. It means that right now there is a problem for the energy in the market of 1.5 billion people over there in India, because they are getting a lot of energy from the countries of the region, and everything is closed. And we are talking about a country whose chaos can put really a serious threat, a risk for the world. 1.5 billion people who haven't maybe energy, power, very soon maybe food or inflation for the food. So the world is really starting to feel the consequences and the impact and the shock of the war that United States and Israel wanted for something between 24 hours to 48 hours, and everything will be done. All right? Look at the difference. Look at the gap. Let me show you something that is very interesting, just to have an idea about the chain of cause and effect. Okay, so we said that one of the country that is highly affected right now in the region is the United Arab Emirates. Right now, that the United Arab Emirates economy is impacted, this country that is one of the most devilish, we can say, right? These are the nasty people who are running the United Arab Emirates. Most of them are the Hebrew, we can say, right? These are the Hebrew that are acting as Muslim. But for now, we don't want to talk about that. This country was one of the main support of the criminals that are acting in Sudan as the RSF, right? The rapid force over there, a terrorist group. And now, because the United Arab Emirates is in a very bad shape, economically speaking, they cannot really support. They cannot send food, munition, money to those mercenaries of the RSF, right? And that's why they are losing. The Sudanese army started to advance more and more and recapture all the towns that had been under control of the UA-backed terrorist group, the RSF. You see how the things are, and the people over there, they are extremely happy. You see the images. In this video, you can see when the Sudanese to have the Sudanese, the fate of Sudan fixed effectively with the dismantlement of this terrorist group that United Arab Emirates, don't forget, in the, let's say, at the best of Israel, right? At the behest of Israel, the United Arab Emirates was supporting these terrorists so that they can take Sudan under their control, and Israel can, like the southern Sudan or the Somaliland, for example, take control of that. That's one part of the Zionist plan. So I am telling you that by the by the chain of the cause and effects, the things are going really in a extremely bad direction for United States and Israel as the initiator, as those who began this war, and now they have to pay an extremely high price. Talking about the price, we know that the global markets are really on the verge of crash. Just to give you an idea about what happened in this bloody Thursday in the stock market of New York, look at this. This is what had been lost, the equivalent of $1,000 billion, $1 trillion, completely wiped out, completely vanished. Why? Because we got the first message of the new leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and in this message, Mujtaba Khamenei is telling that not only we keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, but also we are going to take the vengeance for those who had been killed, the Iranians that had been killed. So a total radical message by the new leader. You remember I mentioned in the previous videos that you get rid of Khamenei and now you have a more radical version of Khamenei, right? And that's very intelligent, actually. So that's why the oil prices started to rise sharply. Now it's over $100. and most probably at the end of the third week, we are going to have something between $100 to $150 for each barrel of petrol, oil. So, which means that we should be ready for having this trend on the stock market, financial market globally, red and declining, and really in fall, right? This is what is happening. All right, let me also come to one important point. With this awareness about a very dark and murky future for the United States, for Trump presidency, for the GOP, for all the Zionist mafia in the United States, for the Zionists in Israel, there is a serious strategic risk of completely, let's say, collapse, right? That's obvious. That we can see that here and there. And when we think about any alternative for this situation, we don't see really anyone. Because today, Netanyahu had a speech in which he was talking about the necessity of putting an end to existence of all these savages, and by savages he meant anyone who is not Jews, right? The Arabs, and he named Shia, Sunni, everyone. And let's prepare the arrival of Messiah, right? Because now they don't have any, let's say, decent strategy to save Israel, Zionism, United States. They don't have any leverage. They don't have any card to play anymore. The only thing that they have is just an eschatological rhetoric in order, to give a sense to this nonsensical undertaking that they have started. So that's why they must create a kind of ideological and religious coverage for what they are doing, and that's why the people are realizing it, and they know that something extremely bad is going to happen. As I told you, there are more and more people like Professor Jiang that are exposing effectively what is behind this rhetoric of war, because now Israel has this impression that it got to the end point, right? And to the standstill. Israel cannot move forward anymore. And the United States, in the same way, in kind, we can say it cannot really get ahead. So that's why from now on, they don't have anything to say but that we are getting to the end of time, right? We are getting to end of history. And in order to do so, we have to create the temple. And the temple will be in Jerusalem. And in order to build it up, because if you don't build this temple, the temple 3, the God won't come on earth. The God can come, the Messiah, the Savior, can come only and only if it can see the construction of this temple over there in Jerusalem. We are talking about the same place that we have right now, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? And if there is not really this temple at its place, the God, the Messiah, won't come. Oh my God. I know. He will be very angry and doesn't accept that. So that's why we have to destroy the Masjid al-Aqsa, right? And we have to trigger a world war with 2 billion Muslims to whom this specific place is important, like exactly like in Mecca, for example. The Mecca and the Masjid al-Aqsa are two holy places for 2 billion Muslims. And the Jews want to destroy the Masjid al-Aqsa in order to create effectively the temple of David, but the version 3. That's the idea of the eschatology. That's the idea of getting to the end of the world where there is nothing to do but triggering the Armageddon, which is the final fight. And this final fight, as I told you, is a nuclear war. And there is no other version. That's why the people are talking about something really interesting, because let me show you what the Colonel McGregor is talking about in its one of its latest interview. Listen to him as a military expert. He has this impression that we are going to have a really collapse of system, in the United States. And he's talking about the economic system, the power system, the food system, and anything. So that's why his recommendation is very revealing, is very significant. Listen to him.
First of all, if you need medication of any kind, you better go out and buy all the medicine you can get, because in a few months they won't be available.
So the first thing is a matter of medication. He is recommending to go and get the medications that we need. Why? Because it won't be available. And why it won't be available?
Because the petroleum industry has a big role to play in production of pharmaceuticals. So that's my first piece of thought.
So again, it's a matter of petrol, it's a matter of oil, and of course, Strait of Hormuz. So if the Americans cannot open the Strait of Hormuz, we are going to have a huge crisis in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes. And secondly, start thinking in terms of storing food and any other items that you think you may need, because as this war continues, and it's going to continue, the impact that I talked about earlier is going to be felt here at it. But in the meantime, I think...
So the matter of food we discussed yesterday, and we said that because of all the lack of fertilizers and other products that are coming from petrol in the petrochemical processing of oil, we are going to have a serious problem for the agricultural activity, and most probably for the next crop season, we are going to have something like only 50% of the usual agricultural production. So which means 50% less food in the market if it happens. And look at what exactly they started as war with, what kind of consequences.
You just need to prepare for the worst here. And once the stock market figures out, or the investors, the people in New York that run the financial system, who are largely part of the problem for us, they're going to say, oh my God, and you're going to watch the stock market tank, and you're going to watch the cost of a barrel of oil go up to 200 and potentially all the way to 3. And all of that is going to bring everything inside the United States to a screeching halt.
All right. So the third issue is when stock markets, when the big companies start to realize that we are going to hit the wall, right? And they will react. And the reaction can be something like this, multiplied by, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5. So because here is a matter of $1 trillion per day, just today. So imagine that if we have something more violent than that, 2, 3, 4 trillion dollars per day. So the economic crash, because we cannot anymore talk about crisis, is a total crash, would be the case. This is it. This is what is waiting for humanity, for the world. More or less, depending on the countries, region, continent, and so on. But that's it. That's what Israel triggered, brought the United States in, and both of them are not right now dragged in, and they cannot do anything. They don't have any solution. So Iran alone is putting the whole world, the global system, we can say, economic system, military system, energy system, the financial markets, everything, in shambles. And don't forget that this is not the end. This is just the beginning. We are talking about a form of law, a form of war that doesn't have any logic. You remember we mentioned several times the expression total war, all out war, right? So what's the particularity of total war? In the total war, you have just one strategy, right? Which is to survive. You want to survive. You want to survive at any price, at any cost, at all cost, right? So we mentioned again that the total war, when the balance of power is not close even, with the two most powerful armies of the world and an average army on the other hand. So the only form of war that Iran can wage is an asymmetric war. In the asymmetric war, maybe you have a strategy, as I told you, surviving. Okay, one strategy, but infinite number of tactics and techniques. In order to assure your strategy in the asymmetric war, you don't have any boundaries, any red line. Of course, you can have the ethical red lines, for example, not killing the innocent, not mass killings, for example. But on the other hand, there is no method, there is no any field that can be really saved for intervention and being used in order to hit the enemy. So that's why the Iranians right now are extremely creative with regard to where they can hit the enemy, where they can cause damages, where they can cause casualties to Israel and to the United States. So that's why all the countries in the Gulf, Turkey, Cyprus, or any part of the region, as you know, maybe tonight, a few hours ago, the Iraqi proxy of the Iranian regime, the Shia group, attacked bases of French soldiers, belonging to France, and injured several people over there and killed one French soldier. Okay, so French, United Kingdom, Western countries, the allies of Israel, the supporter of Israel, any region, any field. It could be military, it could be economic, it could be oil installation. So it could be hacking, cyber war. So you don't limit yourself to anything. Anything could be an alternative for attacking the enemy, right? And hitting it, causing the damages, causing more and more casualties. Let me show you something that is very interesting. You know, the Iranians have several cards that are not played yet. And as I told you, their strategy is to keep going incrementally, step by step, increasing the pressure on the enemy. Can you imagine that they kept still one of the most important of their cards, which is the force of the Houthis in Yemen, for the future? I am talking about, of course, the near future, in a few days, in a week, or something like that. But Iran still has a huge card to play. Why? Because as soon as the Houthi get the order of Tehran to start their operations, they are doing the things like that. They said, one of them said, "We are waiting for the right moment. Another strait will be closed very soon." So we are talking about here, as you can see, the Gulf of Aden, and in order to go to the Red Sea and get to the Suez Channel, they have to pass from this strait. And this strait can be closed completely, like the Strait of Hormuz here. The Strait of Aden could be closed in this region. And from that moment, we have a complete blockade of the southern, we can say, the southern globe toward the north, right? Because otherwise the ships have to go and to make a curve of the whole African continent in order to get to the north. So just imagine. Or, for example, the Houthi are able, because from this region, as you can see, and under the water, there are the huge cables coming from Europe that pass and goes to Africa, to this part of the Middle East, and here to the Asia. And the Yemenis, the Houthis, are able to cut these underwater cables and disconnect different parts of the world, from each other, which means that there would be a huge global internet outage. No data, no transaction, no website, nothing. This is the asymmetric war. This is when you are facing two monstrous military forces, and you don't have any other possibilities but make whatever is possible for you. The cyber attack or this kind of operation. So, in short, we can say that one of the darkest period of the history started 2 weeks ago, 13 days ago exactly, with this unreasonable, nonsensical attack of the United States and Israel on Iran. But very soon they realized that nothing is going on according to the plan, right? So that's why right now they are realizing that the Iranians are hard as nails. They resist. They are very resilient. They are very, nationalist, patriot, and they are not ready to give away their country to the Zionist monsters, right? So from that moment, everything changes, because the Iranians have one strategy, which is to survive, and countless tactics and techniques in order to get to their objective. So from that moment, we can be sure that this war cannot be won by Israeli-American alliance. Could it be won by the Iranians? That's one of the possibility. But if you want to know what's the other one, I can tell you that there is not. There is no alternative for just accepting the defeat by the United States and Israel, and giving away, the complete Middle East region to Iran as a regional superpower. And as it is something that's unimaginable for the Zionists, they are announcing the arrival of the end of time and the Armageddon. So if they don't want to accept the defeat, if they don't want to accept that they failed completely, they don't have any other choice but nuke Iran, right? And in order to do so, they must be ready for the reaction of other nuclear superpower, and we are set for having our World War III, which will be the destructive nuclear war, and after that there won't be any living being on Earth. That's the situation just at the end of the 13th day. We don't know what is going to happen tomorrow or in the other days, but we know that there is no winners in this war. There is only and only the losers, and the losers we have already an idea about who they are. It's a matter of Israel and the United States. They are the real losers of this war. We already know that, right? So that's why I recommend you to follow up the events, to take into consideration seriously the recommendation, like the ones that we heard about the Colonel McGregor. Get ready for the worst. Let's hope for the best and get ready for the worst, and we will see what is going to happen. Anyway, for my part, and in order to give an alternative idea, I will try to produce these videos. I hope that you can share them, you can support them, so that we can have an analysis on the daily basis on what is going on, and having a better idea about the possible scenarios that are emerging from this situation. Thank you very much for watching this video.